All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. This is Daniel Midson-Short. Welcome to Man Talks episode 6. Whew, it has been a busy day, my friends. I just got back to my home office about 10 minutes ago. I was busily prepping this episode at a Barnes& and Nobles just up the road. I was actually working away for the last 2 hours. And then I realized the time and I thought, whoa, I got to get back home. I got to go live. So this is, feels a little speedy, but we did it. We made it on time and we are here, my friends. Hello, those of you who are here live. Great to see you. And if you're watching this later, appreciate you. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments and feedback. Welcome to Man Talks episode 6. We've been doing this for 2 weeks now. So this is the 6th episode, trying to go live Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I'm already starting to realize that maybe this schedule's a little bit too hectic with my current career and trying to create quality pieces of content every couple of days. So we'll see if we can continue this. I've also got some interviews coming up soon, so that will change the style of this show as we go. But for now, and hopefully next week as well, we'll stick to this schedule of Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, in the evening in the UK, and then whatever it is in Australia. So, yeah, thank you for being here. And thank you for everyone who's commented and liked so far. All right, today we are going to talk about an interesting topic, one that has kind of come up in different discussions I've had. And it was actually my wife, Lauren, who was talking to me last night. And she said, I noticed a lot of the talks you've been doing the last couple of weeks have been around kind of the negative or the dark side of men and the things that tend to hold them back or limit them or make them unhappy or miserable. And she said, what about the fun side? What about the happy side? Because believe it or not, my friends, I actually am most of the time a very happy, joyful person. And I have a lot of things in my life that I'm grateful for and a lot of happiness and fun, even though most of the time, for whatever reason lately, we've been looking at the kind of dark side of things. So with that in mind today, I wanted to focus on the joy of being a man in your 30s. Now, this could also be in your 40s and 50s. It could even be in your 20s. But I think in your 30s in particular, certain things come online for you as a man that sometimes we forget about, especially if we tend to focus too much on our problems, which we're going to talk about. So there are different areas and elements of our lives that we can really tune into and find joy inside of if we're aware of them. But it's really up to us if we want to do that. So that's what I want this episode to be about, is kind of revisiting or reinvigorating the joy that we can have as men and how we can have more of that in our lives so we can enjoy our lives. All right. So a little bit of a quick philosophy point to start with here today. I think it's very easy to get stuck in the negative and the problems of life. And while problems are part of our existence, they are not the whole of it. All right. There's a great deal of joy if you choose to look for it. And I want to give you an example of how this works. And maybe you've done an exercise like this in the past, but if you haven't, give this a try right now. All right. So take a look at this picture of this room here. And I want you to look very closely and intensely at everything you can see in the room that is brown. Look for anything that is any kind of shade of brown in the room. So take 2 to 3 seconds now and look for the brown. Brown shelves, furniture, whatever you can find in here that is brown in this room. All right. Now, if you can, close your eyes for a second, even though you're watching this, close your eyes and tell me what you remember in the room that is yellow. Remember in the room that is green. Tell me what you remember in the room that is red. I would bet if you actually did this exercise that you probably can't really recall any of those colors except the color brown. So open your eyes now and have a look, and you'll be surprised to see that in this room, there are a lot of different colors. Pretty fascinating, huh? And that is very often what happens in our lives. If I go back to my previous point, is that we get very stuck in the negative and the problems of life. And in particular, when we're talking about the things that can hold us back, I think this can become a bad tendency in our lives, that we look for the brown, the crap of life, if you like, and we don't see the color and the joy. So, as you go through today and we talk through these different ideas, think of this in terms of the different colors and the different parts of your life that are joyful as well. All right. Now, let's get into the discussion of the different components of what it means to be joyful as a man in your 30s. Well, let's look at the joys of being a man in your 30s. So I believe there are four different elements. There's lifestyle, there's mental, there's physical, and there's spiritual. And there's a lot of different things that fall under these banners. I spent a lot of time last night reading through a lot of Reddit forums because I think there's a lot of honest conversation there, particularly on Ask Men Over 30. It's a great forum if you're a man in your 30s to check out. And while there's a lot of negativity, there is also a lot of discussion around the idea of what makes people happy and what's fulfilling. And I tried to categorize it as best I could based on what I saw. And these seem to be the four areas: lifestyle, mental, physical, and spiritual. And they all kind of encompass this era of change, right? Because in our 30s, things begin to evolve and change. We adapt, we grow, we actualize, whatever word you want to use. And really, those changes are what bring us joy a lot of the time. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's break them down a little bit, starting with lifestyle changes. All right. So if we look at our lifestyle and how it changes in our 30s and 40s and beyond as a man, there's a couple of things I've noticed for myself and a lot of things that I saw were common online. First of all, we tend to enjoy our home life more, right? Whether we have a home, whether we own or we rent, usually we have our own place or own sort of space of some type. Even if we have roommates, we have our own kind of base, usually by the age of 30. Now, I know some people are living with their parents or sharing with family or whatever, but a lot of the time we have our own kind of space, let's say, and we tend to enjoy that space more than we have in the past. And I think this is important to realize and to value, is that you have created a space for yourself. However it looks, you can see I have my own here, right? Everyone has their own space and own place, and you can actually enjoy that if you look at it as something of value. So that's a pretty simple thing. The next is that very often in our 30s and 40s and beyond, we do tend to have most of the possessions that we want. When you're a teenager or when you're in your early 20s, you're kind of acquiring things and you really covered a lot of possessions. Oh, I want a certain car, or I want this video game system, or, I want these clothes or whatever it is. And it seems kind of corny to think that in your 30s and 40s that these are still important, but the truth is they are. Men tend to be externally validated. So when we look at these things in our lives, we can say, hey, I actually have a lot of the things that I wanted when I was young, and that's really cool. I'll give you an example. For me, I always wanted a really nice guitar, and you can see them there behind me. You can see that I've got a couple of nice guitars. I play them occasionally. They're a nice possession to have. I also have a lot of nice books over there that I really value as well. You can see those over on the shelf. So there's a lot of things that you can have that are actually valuable for you as a man, and you can think about those and you can actually realize that you have them. The next is the ability to travel and to explore the world. And I think this is important to remember, that you have this available to you. I know it costs money, it costs time, you have to have the means to do it, but actually being able to travel and explore the world is a great joy that comes to you in your 30s and beyond. Yes, you can do it when you're younger too, but usually by the age of 30 or 40, you have the means to do it in a nice way. You have the time and agency to focus on interests. Now, I know, depending on your lifestyle, in terms of if you have kids or you have a lot of work or things like that, other responsibilities with family, maybe you don't have as much time, but you do have some. And if you choose to focus on something that's important to you, you can do it. So you have the time and agency available to you if you want to focus on passions and interests. It might mean giving up some bad habits, some things that distract you, but you do have that available if you want to do it. And then finally, you get to share life with family and friends. And I think this is an important thing to remember, is that is one of the most rewarding parts of your lifestyle and your life as a man in your 30s and 40s and beyond, is that you get to share your life together. Just focusing solely on your own needs or desires, very often that makes you feel empty. But if you begin to share experiences and you begin to share your life with other people, that's where a lot of the joy comes online. So that's a really key point. So these are the lifestyle changes. Let's now have a look at some of the mental changes that happen as a man in your 30s that bring you joy. So what I've noticed is that typically as you get into your 30s and mid 30s and 40s, you tend to become more logical than emotional, especially when you're young as a teenage male or a early 20s, mid 20s man. You can find that you tend to be very emotional. You get angry, you get upset, you get depressed, you get frustrated. All these kind of emotions bubble up inside of you. But as you get a little bit older, they start to dissipate. They start to level a little bit. And I think that's a really important thing to notice, is that, hey, I'm a little bit more balanced than I used to be. Another big thing that happens mentally, I notice in your 30s as a man, is that you're able to see longer term perspectives. So you can actually view the world with a little bit longer term view. Very often when we're young, we tend to think very quick, short term timeframes. I want this to happen now. If only I had this now, right? But as you get a little bit older, you start to realize, oh, yeah, there are things that have to happen first, or it's okay that this takes a little bit longer, or things will work out in the long run, whatever. So you have a longer term perspective. You can also balance your needs and wants. I think this is really key to realize is that you have needs in your life, things that you have to take care of first, whether it's paying rent or insurances or buying food or putting gas in your car or paying taxes. And then you also have your wants, the things that you desire, and you learn to balance those a little bit better. That especially starts to happen as you get into your 30s and 40s and beyond. And then the last thing I think, which leads to another point later on, is that we can see beyond ourselves. So you can see beyond yourself and what matters to you, and you can look to the other people in your life. And this really leads back to that idea of sharing your life with friends and family. You can see beyond yourself and what you get, and you can start to realize that there's more to life than just meeting your own needs. So these are the mental challenges that I think, or mental changes. So these are some of the mental changes that we have in our lives, in our 30s as a man, that bring us joy. That leads us to physical changes. Now, these probably are the hardest to kind of quantify and why they would bring you joy, but I thought they were important to bring up because sometimes we forget how, even though our physicality is maybe a little less powerful than it was in our teen or 20s, that we do have these things that actually help us in a lot of ways and make us feel happier. So, what I've noticed is that we're able to control cravings and compulsions a little bit more. So, we don't tend to be as excessive in what we do. We can say, you know what, I've had enough of that now. And we can just learn to balance ourselves a little bit more. I know some people are better at this than others. Sometimes I go off the deep end with eating or drinking too much or whatever, but I've learned generally to control my cravings and compulsions. As part of that, we definitely need more sleep and relaxation, and we need better exercise and nutrition as well. These I actually think are good things and can lead to more joy in your life because they actually set you up for a better quality of life. So, even though, yes, you might need better quality sleep, you might need to exercise, you might need to eat better, these things, these needs or these cravings that you have for actually better quality of life lead you to enjoying life a lot more. I know if I'm getting good sleep, if I'm working out more, if I'm eating a little bit better, I actually find my happiness rises up because I feel better about myself because I'm caring for myself. So, as a man in your 30s, I think this is a prime time for this to start to happen. And then the last thing I think is that we're not as driven by hormones. And I know this kind of sounds crazy, but we're not as driven by the need for just sex or power or control. We don't tend to get as angry about things because our hormones are leveling out a little bit. And you can get into a scientific discussion about this if you want. I'm not going to go there today. But generally, we're not as pushed around by the compulsions that we have, which are hormonal. So this is another really good physical change that I think happens that can help us to have a happier, more fulfilling life in our 30s as a man. The last element is spiritual changes. And spirituality, I know, is a broad topic. Some people think of it more on the religious side. Some people think of it more as a kind of, esoteric, open minded thing. So I don't want to get into that in this video. But I do think there are spiritual changes or developments that happen as we grow. And especially in our 30s and 40s and 50s, this is when I think these things start to come online for most men. Maybe even later than that, but tends to be around this time. I know for myself, only the last couple of years into my mid 40s have I really started to explore this side of myself, but really important to think about. So, what happens is I notice we start to look for more purpose and meaning. So we start to look for what life is about, what our purpose is, and what is meaningful to us, and how we can contribute meaning to other people. We're able to see beyond the selfish desires that we've had for most of our younger life, and we can actually look to others to help and to contribute, maybe even to the world, leaving a legacy, things like that. We tend to search for deeper understanding with things. So rather than just looking at the surface level of what's happening, we might start to think about why is it happening? What's the meaning underneath that? And what does that mean in terms of my whole life perspective, right? So there's a deeper understanding there. And I think as part of this, we can actually connect with others on different levels. So it's not just a surface discussion all the time. I think men in particular have a tendency to just stay at a surface level in their discussions, especially around other men, just talk about sports or the weather or work or whatever, and they don't tend to go very deep. But you'll find, especially in your 30s and beyond, if you want to, you can find other men and other people, men and women as well, who will actually want to talk about deeper topics and things, kind of like what we're doing here. If you're watching this, you're probably craving a little bit about that in your life as well. So these are the spiritual changes that I think can lead us to have more joy. So there we go. So we have those four things that I think really make a difference. We have the lifestyle, we have the mental changes, we have the physical changes, and then we have the spiritual changes. And those developments, those kind of changes and growth ability inside of us is a good thing. And I think it leads us to have more joy if we frame it in that way. The last point that I have for you today, which will lead me to a question for you to think about, is how much do you enjoy your life? Okay. Now, the word enjoy is an interesting one because we tend to think of I'm enjoying this as something that we're receiving. But if you look at the etymology or the origin of the word enjoy, it was actually from the old French and it meant to give joy or to make joy. So it's actually about giving or making joy in our lives. That's what enjoy means, right? So my question for you is, first of all, what's bringing you joy in your life right now? There are things, if you think about it, if you tend to focus on them, there are some elements that are bringing you joy. And then the second thing is, how can you create more joy in your life? What can you do to give more joy to others or to create it in your own life? What do you need to focus on more to actually enjoy your life as a man in your 30s and 40s and beyond? I think if you frame the question in that way, it actually helps you to look for more of that, like I was saying, the color, the excitement, the joy in your life versus just getting stuck in the problems. So there we go, my friends. That is everything for today. I know this is a different topic than we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. Again, we've been very focused on the problem centric side of things. I'm trying to balance more. It is tough because I think there are a lot of problems that men have to deal with and things that we have to be open about. But there is a lot of joy and reward as well if we are willing to look for it in our lives. So I hope that that was insightful for you. I can see we've got a couple of people still here online. Thank you for being here. And Rudolph, you said, thanks for this video. Of course, my friend, you are so welcome. I'm so glad that the videos that I've been creating lately have been getting more impact, definitely a lot more views, which is amazing and nice to see. And yeah, I'm grateful for those of you who are finding them useful. I will say that as a video gets more and more views, you definitely get a lot more polarizing comments. So that is something that I'm starting to learn about and figure out for myself, is how do you balance your own mental health as you start to get a lot more attention. Definitely something that I need to talk with my mentors about as well, and set the right habits in place so I don't go down the rabbit hole of getting stuck in negativity or haters or things like that. But yeah, it's a reality of growth, I think, that you tend to have more attention both on the positive and negative side. But overall, I'm incredibly grateful. I think this is a great project. I'm excited to be here. For those of you who are watching this live, I appreciate you being here. I'm excited to do more of this next week. As I said, there's more of these episodes coming, some interviews, some fun stuff I've been working on in the background. And yeah, it's great to have you here. So if this was impactful today, I'd be grateful if you leave a comment. Tell me what resonates for you, what you're going to work on, and most of all, what brings you joy. And with that, have an enjoyable weekend. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for being here. And until then, be the man that you know you can be. See you later.